Hi, I'm Melinda Van Fleet, and welcome to the Good Karma Success Coach podcast. I'm a success coach, speaker, and business consultant, and my husband Ryan and I were laid off at the same time 10 years ago. We moved to the Florida Keys without jobs, not knowing anyone, hardly any money, and we never even been here. But we made it, and now we're living our best lives. And all along on our journey, I've said that someday when we get our quote-unquote shit together, we will help others. And since then, we've both done a lot of self-work and built successful businesses. So that day is here, and one of my ways of paying it forward is through this podcast. Each week, my intent is to be relatable and bring you tactical tips, tools, share my learnings and stories that can help inspire or transform you wherever you are in your career or general life and make an impact. I strongly believe that if I can do it, you can do it too. So what's stopping you? Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Good Karma Success Coach. I have to tell you, it's always funny how the universe works. I had in my head, in my heart, to find a guest that could speak about love and attraction. And wouldn't you know, through a random email that I get, I stumbled across our guest today. And her name is Kimberly Beam Holmes. And she is a attraction and relationship expert. Relationship expert. She has her master's degree in psychology. She's the CEO of Marriage Helper, which is an international relationship education company. And she's the founder and CEO of Pies University, which is what we will be digging into today. So I love that when I had looked at her profile, she starts off with this question, which is, did you know that there is actually a process to falling in love? Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Melinda. So glad to be with you and your audience today.
Yes, I'm super excited. So why don't you just kick it off with sharing how you got into this niche? It's a beautiful niche, obviously, and I'd love to hear your story.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so the company I'm the CEO for now was actually originally founded by my father 20 years ago. And he's a researcher. He's actually a sexologist, which you may find interesting. But he has spent so many decades as a researcher, a PhD, researching what makes relationships work. And actually his dissertation was in the correlation between marital satisfaction and sexual satisfaction. And so he's been doing a lot in this space and working with actually 250,000 people have been through the courses that he has created over the past 20 years. So he has a ton of experience. And what we have found at Marriage Helper, the company I'm now the CEO of, is that there is a process to falling in love. And when I started working with the organization, I never thought I would be the CEO. I never thought I would do anything. I started in marketing. I had my bachelor's in psychology, and I was working there part-time as I was getting my master's degree. But I started really catching the vision of what we were doing with helping people to have more satisfying relationships, more satisfying marriages, and honestly, helping couples who were on the verge of separation or on the brink of divorce. The workshops that we do have a 77% success rate at saving marriages and keeping relationships together, which is amazing. Even according to the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, the gold standard for marriage counseling is 30%, a 30% success rate of keeping a marriage together that's on the brink of divorce. So I was working part-time at Marriage Helper, seeing the amazing success. And I was also getting my master's, and I realized I could have so much more impact and help so much more people if I did Marriage Helper full-time. So I finished my master's in psychology. I went over and just put myself and all of my work and effort into helping this organization grow. And over the past 5 years, we have been able to help 10x the amount of couples. So we're continuing to grow, continuing to help people, continuing to honestly share the process, like you said at the beginning of this, that there's a process of falling in love. And if you follow this process, then you will fall in love whether you mean to or not. You can also rescue love that's in trouble if you go back and start following this process. But if you stop following the process, and most people do because they don't realize there's a process to follow, then you can fall out of love with someone even if you don't mean to. So that's how I got started in this. And then in this process, we'll find that the first part of it is what I became most attracted to and started to put my life's work into. It's what I spend all my free time on. It's what I'm getting my PhD in right now, which has to do with attraction and how can we become the best versions of ourselves in order to create the best relationships possible in our lives.
Wow, that is fascinating. Now, how would you take steps towards finding the ultimate attraction? Like, what would you recommend? If someone's out there and they're looking for their perfect soulmate, what's your thoughts?
Well, let's take a step back and let me just explain the process really quickly. So as I said, there is a process to falling in love. And the process starts with attraction, which is probably not a surprise to most people. Because attraction is typically what gets us to realize whether or not we want to move closer to someone. But there's actually 4 different parts of attraction. And typically, the majority of people, when they hear that word attraction, especially in the sense of romance and relationships, we typically think physical attraction.
Right.
And that is part of it. And it is something that can catch our eye. And it may be the first thing that we notice about a person is their physical attraction, but it is not the most important part of attraction. And it's most definitely not what is going to create a long-term satisfying relationship. Because we all know someone could be supermodel beautiful and be a complete jerk. And when that happens, you don't want to have a long-term relationship with that person. Looks only can take you so far. So the 4 parts of attraction it starts with physical attraction, which can be how you look on the outside, but I believe it has more so to do with how you feel about yourself on the inside. Because if you don't feel good, if you feel like you don't have any energy, you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating right, taking care of yourself, and you just don't feel good about yourself, no matter what you look like or what the scale says, then you're not going to have the motivation to really work on the other parts of this. So the first part is physical attraction. The next one is intellectual attraction. And what this part of attraction says is, or the question that it asks, so to say, would be, am I an interesting person to talk to? Because typically, if you're in the dating scene, or if you think back for all of our married friends, back to when you started dating your spouse, it typically, you see them first. There's something about them that catches your eye. It doesn't always have to be that way, but typically that's how it is. And then you begin to talk to them. And it's through that talking that you start to realize, is this someone that I have something in common with? Do we have enough similarity in our lives and our stories and our hobbies and our interests that we can carry on a conversation? But are we also interesting enough that we can contribute to conversations continuing to happen? Because in a long-term relationship, we want to come home to someone who we enjoy talking to. So that's the intellectual attraction. The third part is emotional attraction. And for relationships, this is the most important part of attraction, because emotional attraction asks the question, do I evoke emotions within another person that they enjoy feeling? So this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of, if someone's beautiful, but they treat you like crap, then you're not going to want to be around them. You need people towards you. You're going to want to be around people who evoke emotions you enjoy feeling, people who make you feel respected, loved, liked, cherished, whatever word it is or series of words that is important to you. That's what you're going to seek out. But it's the same for how you make other people feel. Are you doing things that evoke emotions within others they enjoy feeling? This one is crucial. And then the fourth part of attraction is that spiritual attraction, which doesn't necessarily have to do with religion or faith, but more so has to do, although it does, and that's an important part, but it more so has to do with what are your beliefs and values? Because we are more likely, when we look at research, we're more likely to gravitate towards and be attracted to people who share similar beliefs and values that we do. And the way I explain beliefs and values is, think of the things you are passionate about. the core values that you have about how you believe the world should work, how you believe people should treat each other, and all of those things. Those are the things that are important to you, the things that make you angry, the things that drive you, the things that you want to see change in the world. Those are your core values. These have to do with your beliefs and values. And when you connect with someone who has a similar set of beliefs and values to you, then it gives you that strong foundation moving forward, because you're not going to disagree about the big things in life. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to get with someone or date or marry someone who is exactly like you. We all have someone in our lives that we love them, we respect them, and we differ on some things, and that's totally fine. But you're more likely to be attracted to someone who has similar beliefs and values to you. And even on top of that, for us to be attractive, for me to be the most attractive I can be, I need to actually live in line with what I say my beliefs and values are. Because if I say my value is my family, I care about my children, I have 2 young kids, if I say that this is what I care about, what my values are, but then I never spend time with my kids, I'm never paying attention to them, I'm never investing in their lives, people are going to see that, and they're going to start saying, she's not the person that she says she is. And there starts to be a disconnect there. So when we take all of these 4 pieces together, the physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual, that's what we call the pies. And it starts to give you a framework of, if I start working on these areas, then I can become the best I can be in each area, which is going to increase my attraction and make me the most attractive that I can be, which sets me up for the most fulfilling relationships that I could be able to have.
Wow, that's amazing. I really hope that people kind of started having the clicker go off in their brain, right? In regards to, oh, I get that. So how would you advise someone that, let's say they listen to this and they just started dating someone. Mm-hmm. And I remember being single, which seems like a long time ago, but really wasn't, because I didn't get married till I was almost 35. Mm-hmm. And, you go on a date and you tend to make a judgment really quick, right?
Yeah.
So if someone, let's say you're not emotionally connected to them right away, mm-hmm. would you say that's like an opportunity that people should give each other a chance and work on, or how would they start to work on it even themselves?
Mm-hmm. That's a really great question. And I believe it depends on, there's some variables here. How is this your first date? Is it your 15th date? How far into the relationship are you? And have you given the person a chance to open up to you emotionally? Mm-hmm. So I believe if there is a vibe that you're getting, whether from something you're seeing or something someone said, or just you don't have a good peace in yourself about what's going on, then you have to ask yourself, do you really want to continue trying to make something work that's just not working? Because what I've had to learn over time is maybe I should trust my intuition more times than not. Mm-hmm. But if this is your first, second, maybe even third date, and you're just unsure, you're saying, I'm not sure, I don't know, then some of the things you can start looking at is, are you doing things where you're opening up? Are you giving opportunity for the other person to share more about themselves by taking that leap first and sharing more about yourself? Or are you finding that you're more closed off and maybe that's why they're closed off? So this is something where we can lead in this. So to your listeners, if this is a situation they're in, I think a lot of times people wait and they say, I'm going to wait for the other person to do this. We even do this in our marriage. I'm going to wait for my husband to come to me about the fight that we had last night, or whatever it might be. What I want to encourage people to do more often is you go first. You take the leap, be the more mature person, be the person who's willing to do that, because in the end, it's going to get you the result that you're looking for faster. So if there's someone and they're just not emotionally opening up to you, you don't feel that emotional connection, do something to emotionally open up to them. And then you're probably going to see quicker Are they going to open up? Are they going to be vulnerable back? Are they going to share? Or are they going to continue to be closed off? Are they going to not accept the things I say with the same kind of acceptance I would afford them? And that's going to give you an idea of where the relationship is headed so you can make a decision sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm. That's really great advice, because I do, I'm thinking back to myself and thinking about my friends. It seemed more common that you make a snap decision, right? After like the first date or even the first 15 minutes and be like, oh, no, he's not for me. Or you end up sticking with it so long, trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. That, definitely was guilty of that as well. So I think there is some type of challenge in regard to people finding a balance. And I think that looking within is a great way to start. But, a lot of people don't, which is why there's lots of coaches like you out there. So people need to recognize that. And I love your section about values and what people, might be saying that they do, but they don't really do. And, I talk a lot about walking the walk, and that's basically, the same thing. If you recognize your values, do them as well, like live up to them. And, if you're communicating that you act or think or take action in a certain way. So that's really cool. So what's it like? And if this goes a little personal, you can just shut me down, but what's it like in your household? Like, here you are, you grew up with this dad who created this company, and now you're the CEO, very successful, have your own company as well. What's it like then being married?
Yes, my poor husband. So I say that because, from day one, he was thrown into the midst of this situation where now he has a father-in-law who is an expert on relationships, internationally renowned, and then someone like me. So let me tell you how it is in my household. Here's my weakness, Melinda. I overanalyze my marriage every single day. Because of the work that I do, the people I'm around, the knowledge that I have, the research that I read, the research I've done, I can see warning signs super soon of this could be a problem ahead. And while that may not be a bad thing in and of itself, when you pair it with someone like me, who is also I struggle with anxiety. And so I can start worrying about things really before they've even had a chance to play out, or even before it's an issue. And this has caused a real problem at times between me and my husband, because he might say one word in a tone of voice that I'm like, oh, he's mad at me. And so I immediately feel like I need to fix it. I go in and I say, we need to talk about this. I make it a whole big deal. And my husband, and more times than not, when I make it a big deal, then it's made a big deal only because of me. It actually would have played out and been totally fine. So the way it is in my house is me constantly having to check myself and saying, am I overanalyzing? Am I putting too much pressure on him? Are my expectations too high? And how can I look inward and see where I need to be doing better myself? So even looking at the pies personally, how am I doing physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually in my marriage? How am I affecting my husband in these ways? And so I constantly have to check myself. So it's not perfect. I've actually had people on some of my YouTube videos, when I use personal examples of my husband and I in a fight that we had and how we overcame it, who have said to me, if you are still fighting with your husband, then clearly you don't know what you're talking about. Which is fine. Like, they can say that, and that's great. But the truth of the matter is, there is no perfect relationship.
Right. There's not.
And so I say that and share that vulnerability with you to say, even the people who teach this struggle with it. And it's something we constantly are on the journey of. So when I said at the beginning, there's a process to falling in love, the way that we talk about it in the work that I do is we call it the love path. And it's actually a path you need to stay on and choose to stay on every single day. It's a conscious choice. That doesn't mean you are overwhelmed by it every single day of, oh, I have to do 1,800 things in order to have a great relationship. No, not at all. But it's just something that you're checking in, just like we do with what we eat, or if we're exercising, or if we have, talked to a friend in the past couple of days. It's that same kind of thing. How am I doing in my relationship? How am I following this love path? How am I making sure I am doing the best that I can do and being the best that I can be? Because what I have found, Melinda, in my marriage is that when I focus on how the other person needs to change, whether that's in my marriage with my husband, whether it's with a friend, whether it's with my kids, if I am focusing on how the other person needs to change, I will never be satisfied. When I focus on how I can make it better and what I can do to change, it's amazing the change that ends up happening just by focusing on myself.
Yep, you nailed it. And thank you for being so authentic and transparent, because you're absolutely right. And one of the things, I've announced a little bit to my audience here and there, but my book series that I'm starting is on confidence. And my first book is on confidence for couples. And it is stories of Ryan and I, because we've been through a lot, and one of my chapters is actually what you just said. So that you can't change somebody. And if that's how you're trying to focus on fixing your marriage, you have to do that inner work first. And I think that recognizing that and understanding that and taking a deep breath and a step back is really important, because if anyone thinks that everyone's marriage is perfect, I would think it's kind of a glass house. There's always something you could be working on. So thank you. Yeah. Because we have a lot going on in our world too. So you're not alone. And for me, what I tend to do is I do tend to jump. I'm like the mama bear. So anytime there's like a little problem, I'm like, "Rawr!" And I'm like, I need to like settle down, because then I get him all wound up, and it ends up just like nothing. It was something stupid that I was making into something bigger, mostly in relation to business situations. So, so I think recognizing what your own challenges are and working towards fixing that versus trying to fix the other person is a huge step in the right direction. So thank you again for sharing that.
Oh, absolutely. The other part in that I would say that I've learned in practice and just experience has been there's a tendency for humans, and especially people like me who are fast processors. They want to handle things. They want things to get done. There's a tendency for me and people like me to want to fix things now. And so there's an inner emergency that's not a real emergency, but inside of me, it feels like it, where I feel like I need to talk to my husband about this now. I need to address this today. When in reality, if I were to just pause and give it a couple of days, not saying that I still shouldn't address whatever it is that's happened. An example could be if I asked my husband, so I was telling you this before we started recording, my husband is a stay-at-home dad right now because that's the way it's worked out. He is getting his master's degree. He's doing that part-time, but he's mostly a stay-at-home dad, and I'm the person working full-time. And so if it were that I were to hand him some bills we got in the mail, this happened a couple of weeks ago, and then he forgot to pay them, then one of my tendencies could be, to the minute I realized that happened, to go to him and say, why didn't you do this? And thankfully I did not do this, but in the past I could definitely see myself doing this. So not just saying, why didn't you do this, but saying, you have one job. That would be very demeaning and disrespectful. But this is the things we do. Like, we, in relationships, we let our guard down. We start saying these things. We don't think about it. We make it into a bigger deal than it is. And me handling it that day with that same amount of anxiety and emergency that's going to come out of in my tone and the way that I address him is not going to lead to a productive conversation, because now he feels defensive. He feels disrespected. All of those things, we will not get the problem solved. Whereas if I were to take a couple of days and say, okay, this still needs to be addressed. I'm still going to go and say, hey, you forgot to pay the bills. But if I take a couple of days to let it simmer and let my emotions simmer down, then I will be able to see it clearer and approach it in a way that's going to be more productive, to where now I can say to him, hey, babe, I know things have been crazy and I am sure you didn't mean to. I see that these bills forgot to get paid. Would you mind doing it today? How much more productive is that conversation?
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
the
much
same,
more.
yeah, so much more. And the same goes for, on just a more general level, because I definitely understand what you're saying is, when you get an email from somebody that
Yeah.
is charged or has bad
Yes.
energy, or, it's the same thing. Like, don't respond, don't respond, don't respond,
Yes.
walk away and,
Yes.
think about it, circle back in a day or two, maybe don't respond at all, whatever you need to do. Obviously, if you're in a relationship, you do need to address it, but yeah, it is so important to just take some beats.
It is. It is. And to realize, I mean, I remember growing up, my mom said, not every battle is worth fighting. And it's true. It's so true. Some battles just aren't worth fighting.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, your childhood growing up too. Wow. Like I'm just thinking full picture here, girl. So,
Yes.
yeah. Now,
Yes.
do you guys have seminars? I mean, I know we're in COVID, but
We
do you have
do.
events? Like, how does that work?
Yes, we are. So with what we do at Marriage Helper, we do marriage coaching. We also have online courses for marriages, and then we have our workshop that has the 77% success rate. And we are doing those right now. They're all online. Starting hopefully spring of 21, we're going to start doing some of them back in person, but I think we'll always keep the online ones. And so this year was the first year we started doing that, and they have been amazingly successful. People have loved them. Some people have done both. They've done our in-person in the past and then this one this year. And they've said that they even like the online one better, which just shocked us. So yes, we are still doing seminars and workshops for couples.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. And then what about Pies University? How does that work? Like if someone is single and they're want to start, working on their relationship. I know right before I met Ryan, I was in a very toxic relationship. I finally ended that. That's its own book. And then I did work on myself and I really just let it go. And then I ended up meeting him. So yeah, I think there's a lot of men and women out there just looking to find somebody. So how would you recommend they use Pies and help them move forward to meeting their special person?
Absolutely. The best thing you can do is go to itstartswithattraction.com, and I actually have a free attraction assessment, and anyone can take this. So whether you're married, you're single, whichever it is, this is to help you become a better individual. And so you can go and take that assessment, and it'll actually ask you several questions, and at the end you'll be able to identify which area of the pies are you currently strong in and rocking, and then which ones do you need to focus on a little more and maybe divert more of your attention there. So it can give you that starting game plan to work forward. And then in the beginning of 2021, I'm actually launching a 30-day pies course. So every single day for 30 days, it's teaching you the best things that you can do in each of these areas and giving you things to do each day in order to feel better about yourself, regain your confidence, regain your self-esteem, and be able to move forward in life with confidence, knowing that you are the best person that you can be. But you can start with that free attraction assessment and look through that and start from there.
Oh, I might do that because it sounds fascinating and I'd like to see what it comes up as.
Yeah,
and I'll make Ryan do it too, which he'll probably not at your thing, but just in general, whenever I ask him to do something like that, he kind of rolls his eyes. So, but yeah, it'll be fun to see and compare. And yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, absolutely. It's always fun to learn more about yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I ended up doing something yesterday too that was something I'd never heard of before that was fascinating. So I guess it's kind of the mood I'm in today. So yeah, that's awesome. Anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
I don't want it to be lost on anyone. And I think a lot of people can hear a conversation like you and I just had and say, I get it, I need to work on myself. And then they feel overwhelmed or maybe defeated, or maybe because of their past circumstances, they just feel like I can't do this. Like I'm not worth it. I'm not worthy. What I want to encourage your listeners and everyone listening is that you really do have the ability to change your perspective and change what you're doing. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. So in talking about becoming the most attractive you can be, we're not talking about losing 30 pounds and becoming like a supermodel. That's not it. We're talking about you becoming the best you can be for your age and situation in life, not comparing you to other people, not comparing you to past relationships. I mean, none of that. This is simply a way to empower you to feel good about yourself. And no matter what has happened to you in your past, no matter how you feel about yourself now, I want to encourage you that you are worth investing this time and energy to, because you are worth it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that, because you're right. People do get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I do think that someone could listen to this and be overwhelmed. So I think that's really, really valuable that you shared that. And what came to my mind sitting here was, doing your program, listening to a podcast, meeting someone new, look at that as a fresh start.
Mm-hmm.
It's how amazing that you get a fresh start every day when you wake up, but how amazing when you have a new relationship, you have a fresh start. So if you do a little bit of work and break it up, like you're suggesting, and not put the pressure on yourself, but just take some of the tips, pick a couple things that you find that you can work on. And next time you meet someone, you have a fresh start to try it again. So that's really cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I love our conversation. I really, really am grateful that you took the time today to come on the podcast. Thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it so much, Melinda. It was great talking with you.
How would you like everyone to get hold of you?
Oh, yes. So there's a couple of ways. You can go to the website. Like I said, it starts with attraction.com, get that free assessment. And then you'll also be put on the email list, and you'll be able to know about my podcast and things. I do have a podcast. It's called It Starts with Attraction. You can find it on wherever you listen to podcasts. And then if you're in that marriage space and you're wanting some help for your marriage, then you can go to YouTube. You can see what we're doing at Marriage Helper. We have a ton of videos over there. Or go to marriagehelper.com to find out more there. And then if you want to connect with me personally, I'm currently taking a break from social media, but you can go and find me on Instagram at Kimberly Beam Holmes. And whenever I start back up, then you can connect with me more there.
And do you mind sharing, why are you taking a break?
Oh gosh, yes, I'm
fascinated / jealous. So that's what I know.
Well, back in September, I was overwhelmed with everything. I mean, growing an organization, starting a second company as well. I'm in the middle of my PhD. And I'm still a mom and a wife. And so I said, something has to give. At least for this season of my life, I need margin. I need space. I need time to think. I need time to breathe. I need time to relax. And the only thing that I was doing that I honestly said, this doesn't matter, was social media. It was distracting me. It was taking time and energy away from my kids, from my husband, from my work. And so I said, for now, it's done. And it honestly, here's the truth. For 2 years, I knew I needed to do it. For 2 years. And I kept saying no. And I had all these reasons. It's how people connect with me, blah, whatever. So I finally just did it. In September, I said, I'm done. I'm doing it now. And my anxiety was through the roof. Like with everything going on in 2020, I just needed to disconnect. It's been amazing. And I know I'll go back to it at some point, but the time off right now for me to refocus and repurpose and go back to it with intention. What do I actually want to do with this? And what time should it take from me? I'm excited about that, but I don't feel the need to do it right now. I have other things I need to do, and I don't need that distraction.
Yeah, no, I think that is really smart. I definitely have had a lot of experience with my with social media. I really only got on social media last summer of 2019, spring or summer, with Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, there's a lot to be said for needing a break, making sure it's intentional, making sure it's worth your time, and not letting energy of what other people are posting out there affect you. And I think that's a huge, huge concern right now. So kudos to you, girl. Love it. That's great.
Thank you. I would encourage anyone thinking about taking a break to just do it.
Just do it.
Do it.
That's great. Well, I hope that folks in the audience connect with you. It's really been a pleasure. And I thank you so much, Kimberly. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. I appreciate it.